Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Maria Gonçalves podcast. I'm your host, Maria Gonçalves, and today we have a special guest. His name is Jon Furtado, and he is an evidential medium. So, welcome, Jon.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Maria. How are you?
I am good. I'm like so excited that you are here. Can you share with our listeners where you are located?
I'm located physically in Montreal, Quebec, but
Yeah.
I work all over. I was born in Europe, in San Miguel, in the islands of Portugal, but I've worked in Europe and in the U.S., more so North Carolina, Graham, North Carolina, Chapel Hill with Unity Church. I was invited to work down there as a medium, and an event or two in Sedona. And so I work a little bit everywhere. Ottawa International Church. There's a spiritual church in Ottawa. I'm there the third Sunday of every month. Oshawa's coming up in Coburg.
Oh, nice. So I was on your website and I noticed your website is in English and French. So
Yes.
then you offer readings in French too, correct?
English, French, Portuguese.
Ah, that's what I was going to ask. Does he do it in Portuguese?
I do it in Portuguese, but it's almost this insecurity of like, oh my God, my mother passed in 2021 and I don't really speak Portuguese to no one.
Yeah.
And I was, my Portuguese was out of the book with my mom and had to speak really well. So I was conditioned to know it well. So there's this fear of, I work as a therapist also, a thérapeute à relation d'aide, which is a relationship therapist, school out of Quebec and Montreal and Paris. That I do in French, and I'm offering that in English now. And I find that when I do it in all these languages, it's the same message. When I'm doing spiritual, when I do spirit, when I'm connecting with spirit, I just find English to flow, but French too. So I don't have a problem with the flow with the
Yeah.
language. Yeah.
I will say we were speaking Portuguese earlier, and I think your Portuguese is exceptional.
Thank you. Well,
So
thank you. It's great. It's great. It's just that I have this mindset: if you don't speak well, don't speak.
I I think it was perfect. So for those, if I got any Portuguese listeners here, you're
Olá,
looking
tudo
for
bem?
Portuguese reading. His Portuguese is exceptional. You guys are in good hands. So yes,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
you're so welcome. So within your mediumship, I'm always curious when I bring guests on, how did it all begin for you, your mediumship? Like, were you a medium as a young kid, or did it happen later on?
I was as a young child. I would travel to Boston, to New Bedford, Mass. So this is my father's side. My paternal great aunt, Maria,
Yeah.
uh, was an amazing medium in New Bedford, Mass. And I remember her being so scared of her gift and saying, "What is wrong with this woman?" Nobody ever explained to me what mediumship was. She just spoke to her dead husband, made tea. She knew how many cars were crossing the border to America. She knew my name, my favorite food. It was things as a child, it freaked me out, and she had a glow in the dark Virgin Mary, which freaked me out as a child. She brought me to a spiritualist church. I must have been 8. And they were speaking in tongues. So it was like an evangelist spiritual church. That was the beginning of what is this strange. And I was always told, oh, she's special, she's good. But my own personal journey started way, way, way. I didn't want to feel this. I didn't want to connect to spirit. I did not want to. No.
Yeah, I will say, because you did make me laugh there. I remember every one of my aunts growing up, we had the glow in the dark Mary, and when the lights are off, you're like, what's that in the dark?
Yeah,
Yes, I remember that.
scary.
It's funny. I think it's so funny. So, uh, we were talking about the passing of your mom and
Mm.
your grief journey. So, can you share that with us?
Yes, I actually almost graduated, and I'll explain. As a grief therapist, I did my whole class, my dissertation. I was supposed to send it in, and we were speaking about this, how computers are challenging for a medium, for myself, and how it's like, oh Lord, how do I send this out? And I sent out my dissertation for my certification. I'm already a therapist, and I sent it out so quick. I just wanted to cross the border and go to the US. I just wanted to go to the ocean. And it didn't go through. But as I was going through the grief counseling training, I never let go of my mom. So that for myself, crossing through America and going through the Carolinas, Florida, Georgia, all these states, and I was there for 3 months, and I
Yeah.
was called down to work as a medium, by a friend who's a Reverend Chris Nygren. at Unity Church in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And that's where my journey started. Interesting enough, I work at the International Temple of Spiritual Relations in Montreal that was founded 60 years ago by two Black women from the Carolinas. So there's a really interesting correlation that I first go to the Carolinas, you see.
Yeah.
But going with the grief, it's as I moved through the desert, New Mexico and Arizona. I had an event in Sedona that was fine. And, Umpqua National Park in Washington State, I bought a drum from,
Yeah.
85-year-old psychologist, recovering alcoholic man, because I wanted a drum. And the drum was the beginning of this letting go. And I would just play it once in a while. And I was sleeping on a roof nest. If you don't know what that is, it goes on my Subaru, and it's like a little tent that pops up. So you actually have a physical mattress and you go up a ladder.
Yeah.
I used to be scared to cross the street, as a child. And I said, no, I'm doing this. But when I arrived in Canada, I went through Vancouver and
Yeah.
the Rockies, I felt the tears come down and this release.
Yeah.
And I was playing this song. I actually wrote the artist, how powerful it was. It wasn't a release because I want to forget my mom. It was a release to let her go into the spirit world. Because
Yeah.
as a medium, I connect with everybody's spirit, loved ones who've passed, but my own is so difficult. It's so close to my heart.
Yeah.
I actually felt this release. Yes.
So
So,
when did your mom pass away?
2021, May 26th.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard from friends because my dad just passed away October 31st of last year. And they always say the second year is the hardest.
Mm. They do. I mean, it goes in shifts and waves. It's different for everybody. You see, with grief, with my clients, when I had clients in school, what I noticed with grief is there's all this shame about letting them go, or the smell in the clothes. There's this physicality we need. But to
Yeah.
not stop talking about your dad, I say, is so important to keep them alive in your
Yeah.
memory, because there's a tendency to not want to bother people after month 1 or 2 or 6 months, a year, because then your friends are like, "Hi, how are you?" And if you're sad, they're like, "What's wrong? He's in a good place," and you don't feel heard.
Yeah.
That castrates something within grief. That's why it's important to join grief groups.
Yeah.
I mean, here in Montreal, we have Teresa Diller, top-notch palliative care. They offer free counseling for grief. So there's a lot of these palliative care centers will offer free counseling. What that does is you regroup with people to speak about the person, the loved one who's passed, who's died.
Yeah.
It's important to use the right words.
I think like what you're saying, after my dad passed away, nobody likes the word died. They would
Mm.
cringe and I'd be like, what, that's what happened. Like he died. But I could see how uncomfortable a lot of people around me would be with that word. And I always noticed it because it's almost like they had a physical reaction. I was like, are you okay? Like he died. He's okay. Like, you know,
But
but yeah, it's
hard for,
interesting you said that.
it's hard for people.
Yeah.
I'm
And
also I'm people, but I'm also a trained therapist. So to see this in people, to my own self was wow, I was amazed at how I let it go. I had no idea I was going to let it go in the Rockies.
yeah,
There's something about the mountains is freeing. Every religion in the world talks about going to the mountains to pray to God. But there's something energy. I thought it was going to happen in Sedona because of all the vortexes, but nope, it happened in Canada.
I I love that. And for those of you that are listening or watching this interview, again, I just want to repeat what John said, like go find grief counseling. There are services out there that are free. So thank you for reminding us of that. Depending where you are in your grief journey, or call somebody, talk to them, explore. So how do you find that within your mediumship? Because I find now for myself, my mediumship, after the passing of my dad, I just find I go so much deeper.
Mhm. Yeah, I go deeper. I'm able to connect to that person in a way that I know because I've lost my mom. My sister died when she was 12. I was 2.5. So grief
Yeah.
has been part of my journey forever. And there's complicated grief. Like my sister was complicated grief. I was 2.5. And when you don't have vocabulary, you have feeling
Yeah.
or motor skills are developed, you feel things.
Yeah.
And the grief was stuck as a child. Took years, decades for it to go out because I was feeling as an empath. I didn't know I was a medium back then. I knew I was aware of my parents' grief. I can go on about this for all kinds of hours about the whole therapy, about how it's healed me,
Yeah.
how how that sensibility, it does help to have a connection, not to take on their grief, but to be able to hold space for someone when you've been through it.
Yeah. I will say for myself and for those that are listening, the reason I love doing podcasting is because it allows me to bring people like you on to share your stories to help others that are listening not feel alone,
Mm.
right? And it's like, yeah, it's beautiful. So I am curious. So as a kid, what were your mediumship abilities like as opposed to now?
Oh, I had a lot of fear because the Catholic Church. I was just like, oh Lord, I would feel things and feel ghosts. I did have a friend, like, I did see a little boy often once in a while, but I didn't see him with these eyes. I used to see him in my mind. And, I would see a lot of shadows and things going back and forth. And I had a lot of imagination. And in mediumship, imagination plays a great role to connect to spirit at first, right? To connect to
Yeah.
moment. Anyway, you know that. But there was something as a child that I blocked around 7, 8 years old. I don't want to listen. I don't want to feel this. And
Yeah.
it only came out of my 30s through a near-death experience form, sort of. That'll be in my book. I can talk about a lot, but it was through I crashed and burned, and then I just saw myself come out of my body, and it was like that experience and seeing spirit like I'm seeing you.
Yeah.
That didn't freak me out, just said, "Oh, you're back."
Yeah.
And left, and it's developed differently. But as a child, I was very scared of it because there was so much of it around me. I
Yeah.
have to say, my maternal grandfather was a medium. I'm named after him, João, which is John from Portuguese. And
Yeah.
my mother only told me her father was a medium a year before she died because she's like, I didn't want to burden you because it's a hard gift.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know. I sometimes I wonder. I think we all have mediums in our family, but it's a secret and nobody tells you who they were. And you kind of find out about stories because I'll hear stories in my family because I have an Aunt Maria and my mom would share stories. And I'm like, those stories it sounds a lot like a medium. It's like, no, 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 no. She saw the Virgin Mother Mary. She ain't no medium. I was like, she saw Mary. She talked to Mary. I'm gonna go with she's a medium, but yeah, it's only when you find out the stories when the families are talking, you're like,
Our
"Hey."
country, Portugal, was very Catholic. And before that, there's a Knights Templar. So there's a lot of history with shamanism. My grandpa's a shaman, but that's been hidden away. You
Yeah,
know, they call it curadores and all this, and healers and witch doctors, and you call it what you want. But there was a lot of that, always was. But there's a lot of tragic ways people were scared of that. Almost, it was
yeah,
saintly in a way. We're afraid of that. This person feels things, sees things.
yeah. I find that is so fascinating, the way we were raised, and then, yeah, and then the fear, and then the, "Shh, don't talk about it." But it's all coming out because it's part of
My mother
healing.
knew. My mother knew. She came to the spiritualist church I work at on Zoom before she passed.
Did you really?
She
So what
couldn't
did
believe
your mom think?
She thought it was funny. She said, "Oh, you see things," and I'm like, "Yeah." She never. My mother was always very shy about me sharing it.
Yeah,
Uh, she saw me work on screen. She was very proud. But she always said, you got to do something else, be the therapist, do that. She was always go here, date this person, do that.
yeah,
Um, we spoke about her dying in a very brief way. Um, and it was respectful of her boundaries, but at the same time, an understanding that her time was done.
yeah,
And I spoke about mediumship. And I remember my guides telling me it's time to let her go. You can't do body talk, or it's a modality I used to do, or Reiki. You need to let mom go. This is her journey now. So yeah, we had this really huge connection, mom and I. And
yeah,
she was very psychic, she just never said it. She knew things that were going to happen before they happened. It was interesting. She was a feminist. I mean, she was a very strong woman.
yeah.
I grew up with a woman who was very strong-minded, you know.
As are many Portuguese women.
Well,
I'll
yeah,
say
but I got that character from her, you know. She'd say things like, "Oh, when you marry a woman," I'm like, "Mom, I'm not marrying a woman."
that.
But things like to my father, you know, I want to share a story in Portugal. We were visiting. I was 19, and my dad saw an apparition in my uncle's yard, and the electricity wire got cut to the house, and it was the strangest thing. And my dad never spoke about spirit ever, and he was
Yeah.
so scared. You see, there's so much dogma attached to spirit
Yeah.
in Portugal.
It's interesting. Yeah, I find that super interesting. I am curious, uh, because after your mom passed away, how long did you wait to get a reading?
A week or two.
And then,
My
and
mom passed away the next day. I was in class and to be a therapist.
oh wow.
I had to. I couldn't. I mean, it was the day after the funeral started. So she passed away, and but the next day after the funeral, I was in class, and it was like it was the hardest thing to do. Oh, and I was in this class, and we spoke about loss. And
Yeah.
I remember somebody was crying about her cat, and I said, "Oh Lord!" And two of us in the classroom had lost our mothers. And I
Yeah.
was angry inside. And I said, she's allowed to lose, to feel loss for a cat. It's not a human being, but it's still a cat. But I couldn't speak about my loss. And it was hard. It was hard. I'm happy I did it,
Yeah.
but I learned a lot from it.
Well, there's so many emotions after the loss of a person. And then too, there is, and the reason I asked how long you waited for a reading, because I know there is, I feel like this, I don't know what the proper word is, this rule, you gotta wait like a year or 2 years. And I'm like, what? So I was just curious for
I don't
yourself.
like it.
I agree. And then I just because of my own experience, did you have a visitation from your mom or like outside of the reading? Like to get signs from her.
Oh,
Did you
yes. Yeah.
remember how long it was?
Yeah. Then the day after she passed, I had a sign. Um, very strong, very strong sign, which I have on video. And it was interesting because I was at the point, I had a partner at the time that was again didn't understand any of this and banker logic, you know, which is
Yeah,
okay. And I went to the palliative care because I needed to be with her body to bring to the morgue. I needed to be there. And I sang her a song because my mother used to sing fado on the radio. And I sang her a song as they brought her body out. We had candles. So it was very ceremonial, you know.
yeah.
Um, yeah, there's something about having her send off the day before when she passed. An hour later, I was putting her makeup on. You know, it was important that I make her up to be the beautiful woman she was. Um, but the sign I got was so strong, and it was a truck that cut me off, you know, and it said St. Michael, the island we were born. What if the moment right after? So it's like I had many of those beautiful signs. I had
Oh,
dreams, so I had many of those.
oh, that I love that. The day after my dad passed away, I had a visitation dream, which was beautiful. And then that morning, because I am addicted to coffee, I know it's bad for us, but I need my coffee. So I go in the kitchen to make my cup of coffee, and my dad loved his coffee. And the next thing I know, I could sense him standing beside me. It's like, good morning, Maria. I was like, hey, Dad, let's have coffee together. And that's why I asked you, because I'm always curious, because I know that there are stories of people where they will say, "Oh, I haven't had a sign in like 10 years." And I'm like, "Okay." So
Mm,
just be aware, be open to those signs because they're everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah. So for my next question is, what is your why for doing mediumship? Why do you do it?
Help people.
Yeah.
It's my baseline. I mean, it's always been to help people and I became a therapist to better understand emotions for
Yeah.
myself. As a medium, I needed to understand what I was going through,
Yeah.
to not mix my world with the person's world. I've seen too much of that garbage. I've seen too much of this. I've had experiences with mediums like that. They're like, I don't tell people I'm going to die. I don't want to know. It's not my business. There's a fine line there. And there's something about I needed to heal the healer, which I'm always doing. And it's not about the diploma being, left field and working in a field that's everybody loves, right? To get help. It was more, how do I clean house so I can better help? So my baseline is helping people, always has been.
Yeah.
And working at this temple, that's the Reverend Juliet Enoch, she's 84, Trinidad, beautiful woman. I learned a lot from her. She's one of my peers, but I learned a lot from Spirit too. So,
Yeah.
and many of these people have allowed me to go deeper with the same congregation that's there every week.
Yeah.
I thought that was strange that I can go deeper messages if I see you a lot, but I don't talk to people before I go into space. Because people have a tendency to put mediums on pedestals and go, and I'm like, no, 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 because they want to know. I understand there's an excitement. There's like the stardust, which could be very addictive, to some
Yeah.
people. Um, but the baseline is to help people, help them connect with their loved ones, help them connect to their soul essence, to peace, to a form of peace from the other side, to know they're not alone.
Yeah.
It's so important that they know they're not alone, especially when there's depression and there's angst and people go through hardships, right? Loss, divorce, loss of job, whatever. That humanness, it's nice to give them a little bit of something.
Yeah.
You
That,
don't. I was last week. They were reading a passage from somewhere. I think Isaiah. I don't know, somewhere from the Bible, and it said something when God created man. He said it tastes good.
yeah.
And the writer was talking about when she was making this, like Portuguese, we have this bread we make. It's like pão de ló, I think it's called. They make it with flour, uh, on the frying pan, and it's like they make that in the islands, and it's probably in the city
Yeah.
too. But this bread you made with flour, and it's very thick, but it kind of breaks up like a host. And
Yes.
when you make something, you put all that love into something. At the end, it tastes good. That's what mediumship gives to people. What I've seen.
Yeah. Oh, that is beautiful. So for people that are brand new to this journey, and I like to ask all my guests this, and they are overwhelmed and they
Uh-huh.
don't know where to start. What do you recommend for people brand new to this, but they have that calling, they can feel it?
Go to Dollar Tree in the US, go to Dollar Store in Canada and buy a white candle. Keep it simple, sit in the dark, pray, uh,
Yeah.
get some, deity you love, Virgin Mary, Kuan Yin, whatever speaks to you, whatever form of spirituality is good for you, because your intention will infuse this vortex within your own self and in the room you're practicing. Because that is what's going to create that. And it's at first it's lonely, yes, but to also find community, don't shelter yourself. People are afraid of the word church, like spiritualist churches, and there's no dogma. Most of them have the seven principles, brotherhood of man, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
They don't tell you what to do. They just allow you a space to go in and go, okay, you know?
Yeah.
And people are afraid because they've been so controlled, but you can't throw everything out. And if you have community, the British are amazing at having community in schools for mediumship because they've been doing it for so long. And spirituality became a religion in 1830 in the UK. It's different.
Yeah.
But I believe Canada, US, there's so much availability. There's so much area of growth in this, and people want it. I see it in my practice as a therapist. People talk to me. A lot of my clients come to therapy through my Mediumship website, which is interesting because they're like, "You do therapy? Yeah, okay. What form of therapy?" And they're like, "Okay." Yeah, and for healers or people starting off, it's just keep it simple.
Yeah. I like that. Don't make it complicated.
Oh, you can, because then the ego comes in. I'm not good enough. Oh my God, I'm not doing this. And then it creates this mud, mildew. It creates this ucky feeling of like, oh, I'll never get there. Allow space in the silence. The silence is what gives you the biggest strength in mediumship. Can never say that enough.
Oh, that is true. Yeah, I say that all the time. You know what you just reminded me? When I got my mediumship abilities completely by accident, was like, I had a severe back injury, my mind kind of snapped and I would see spirit. And then I was listening, which I shouldn't have done. Uh, to other people. And it's like, well, you need crystals. So I have my whole bedroom covered in crystals. Then my mom went to Portugal and she went to Fatima and she got the different statues, Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, and what's there's another big archangel, I can't remember. She got them blessed by the priest in Fatima. Then she got the rosary. She's like, you will be protected from the spirit world. Then somebody brought me back holy water from the Holy Land, Fatima. And I was just like, but I didn't know. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And the people that were around me, like, there was so much fear. And I know the crystal shop did very well with me as a customer back then.
I have a lot,
The fortress, I was so
yeah,
terrified.
it's normal. And I have a lot of I used to have a lot of spiritual insecurity. I don't anymore. Like I
Yeah.
have all kinds of deity, like, objects, and like a friend from Mount Shasta made this,
Oh, it's beautiful.
and her name is Haruku
Yeah.
Starseed. She has a store in Shasta, and I walked in and I said, "Can I have a reading?" She goes, "You don't need a reading." And see, I love people like that, that they know. They feel
Yes.
by vibration, they're like, no. So when it comes to go towards people, and the spiritual churches are, it's not expensive. I think they charge $20 or $10 for spiritual development here in Montreal. And people, it always freaks me out when people think it's expensive. I'm like, excuse me, when you go to the UK, you're going to pay 900, 1,200 pounds for a week at some of
Yeah.
these schools. It's a lot of money, and it's okay to do that if that's what you wish to do. But I find that sitting in community in a circle is so powerful.
Yeah. I agree. I noticed for my own mediumship development, because I've done progressives and they're fantastic. And I flew to the UK and that's amazing. But it's that weekly circle, that weekly community that where you go in and you're like, oh my goodness, this happened to me this week. What's going on? And to be able to express that in a safe space. And it's almost like you're building your mediumship family. That is more valuable than anything else for myself on my own mediumship journey.
When I was in Europe, I was alone for 3 months, about 2 months before going to Arthur Finley.
Yeah.
And I was getting messages everywhere. I mean, there was one time on the plane, and I'll never forget this funny message, because I always thought, oh, it has to be. I used to think years ago, I used to write for an hour before getting a message, and I was so insecure to write after. And then the spirit said, oh, stop writing, just be. Sometimes I make chicken soup kanja, and that's the best messages I have, because I'm making soup, so my mind's not thinking of everything, and I'm just telling that I'm connected, and boom, boom, boom. And I realized I was in business class, which I normally can't afford, but I did this time. And with Corsair going to Paris, and the flight attendant, she's like looking at me, and I'm like, oh Lord, and I know when that look when they're like, oh, you have nice energy or something. I don't know. It's just and she comes up to me and she's like, hello, bonjour. And I'm like, hello. And she's like, you have a nice energy. I said, well, thank you. I said, look, I have a mess. And then I hear spirit telling me, tell her. And I'm like, tell her what? I have no idea. Tell her what? And it was interesting because I said to her, can I give you a message on medium? She said, yeah, because I always ask for permission. I
Yeah.
always, it's rule one. And she said, yes. And I said, well, you have two young daughters. You have a boyfriend that's on a boat right now with a younger woman than your daughter. So how are you going to show that example? And she's like, started to tear up. She goes, I knew it. And then I said, by the way, j'adore votre français. I love your French, but you're not even Parisian. You're from Italia. You're Italian and you live in Nice. And she went, oh my God, how do you know that? And that was an aha moment for me.
Yeah.
Spirit just 20,000 feet in the air and just spitting out this stuff. Next thing you know, she wants to present the pilot to me. I'm like, no, I just want to get to Paris. And on
Yeah.
the flight back, I realized that the flight attendant, different person, asked me, can I ask you a question? I'm like, so now they know the name.
Yeah.
And it's weird. That's the part that I find strange. People attach so much like aha to mediums, which I understand they want answers, but I
Yeah.
also have to have boundaries in that sense.
Yeah. That is amazing. When I go out, I don't tell anybody I'm a medium. I'm like, I'll be quiet. Do you have a message? I got nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe a couple years it will switch, but I'm just like, yeah, I'm just Marie over here. I'm just Marie having my cup of coffee. I think
It's
it's
very rare.
amazing though. And I think it's so amazing how spirit is like, because for me, spirit doesn't use me in that way, but I love how spirit did that for you and with the airline
Even
story.
In Greece too, and
Yeah,
in Patty, in Italy, in Bari, I walked into this agency, and it was like a travel agency, and it just the mess just started coming in. She wanted to offer me a night at her five-star hotel. I'm like, no, 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 I'm going to Greece. It's good. In Greece, the same thing. I went to a crystal shop. Two girls walk in. And she's like, we started talking. What do you do? I said, I'm a medium. I own it now. I own
yeah,
it completely. It's what I do full time. So,
yeah,
and there were two girls from Montreal, and here I'm giving them readings, and it's not even about, I didn't charge these people anything. It's just I connected. It was almost like a practice all over the world where I can do this. It doesn't
yeah.
matter the language. It's the emotion, it's that feeling, and it was amazing. In Portugal, I had a like, no, I ain't doing, like, nobody, I didn't tell anybody. It was like this block of like, oh my God, these are my people. I don't want to. Yeah, it was strange that way because
I
in
don't want to,
Portugal, it was about healing. My mom
yeah.
had died, so it was about going back to the country.
And there's a lot of dogma, and you're just like, I don't know. It's funny because my mom, every once in a while, she'll be like, so what do you do? I'm like, I do nothing, do nothing. I think she knows, but to say it out loud would probably scare her. So I'm like, Mom, I just look at tarot cards. They're really pretty. Because that's in her scope of understanding, and I leave it there. She's 80 years old. Yeah, we're just
I have a
gonna
cousin in Victoria, BC. She just moved back to Montreal, and she used to say, "Since when do you read people?" Because my family has no idea. I don't tell my family,
yeah.
my mother's side completely knows. My American got like, what you do. Like I was in Boston. My cousins work for Boston College next to Harvard. And next thing I know, they bring me to this little place, Rockport, I think, Mass. And this woman, we're in a spiritual shop, and we start, and it just starts going. And they're like, and the woman starts to cry, and she's in tears now because she's receiving healing. Because there is healing with messages.
Oh,
Um,
so much.
yeah. And my family has seen me in action in the US, and they're like, oof. So here, less a bit, but
Yeah.
I guess it's home base. Um, a lot are very fearful in my family about this gift. People think that because I'm a medium, I see right through all your filing systems. No, I don't. I don't. I see
Or
what
we're
spirit.
reading their minds. We don't.
No, I read the lottery. My God, I would read the lottery tomorrow morning, but I don't.
That's so funny. You just reminded me of an experience I had because you said the word healing. And the one thing I do notice spirit has done with me in the last year when my dad was in the nursing home and I would meet new residents coming in and they were having a hard time. I could feel the husbands or the wives step forward and I would pass the messages, but I never said, "Hey, I'm a medium." It was just like, your husband would have really liked this. But I do remember one particular little elderly lady. She was so sweet. I gave way too much details, and she kind of looked at me. She's like, "Wait, how do you know that?" And I was like, "Oh, you know what? It was just you just shared that story." She had a bit of dementia, but it calmed her down. But I could sense her husband coming in and just wanting to say, tell her I really love her and I'm watching over you. So I would do it more in a casual conversation. So you just reminded me of how spirit has used my abilities in the last 2 years while my dad was in the nursing home with some of these residents coming in and really struggling being there and missing their loved ones, right? And they would just, it's amazing how spirit uses us to help facilitate, help hold that space for somebody else to heal,
Big time.
whatever that looks like. So, my next question to you, because I noticed on your website you offer Reiki. So, how did you get into Reiki? I
Oh,
love Reiki.
I learned from, yeah, I'm a master Reiki. I learned from a Catholic nun.
Did you really?
Passed away now. She's gone to spirit. She was 89. She taught me Reiki, and she would teach each chakra is like, Jesus was the heart, and Buddha is the sacral, and it was so amazing, her teachings. Her name is Marielle Patnaud, and I needed to learn from someone who somehow was close to God, and somehow the God of my understanding.
Yeah.
Learning from an 89-year-old nun who worked at La Maison du Père, which is a homeless shelter in Montreal For 40 years, she did Reiki on homeless. And that spoke to me because she was excommunicated from her congregation for doing that. But
Yeah.
for 40 years, she did Reiki and posed hands on these people and helped so many. I mean, she charged, I think, $40 for level one, level two and three. Because I did level one with a shaman, no offense, but someone
Yeah.
who was spitting out fire. And then she's like, "Would you like four hands for an extra $100?" I'm like, "What?" And I was like, "This is crazy. This is too much. This is not, it
Yeah.
wasn't, there was something missing." And I really found the healing of, for me, my Reiki master. Well, she brought it out forward. I do offer that on my website. I've been thinking of removing it. And the other day,
Yeah.
another client called in because I get that.
Yeah.
Like I do other things I don't mention on my website, like exorcisms. I mean, I've done them in the US and I don't publicize it, but it's something I offer because there are things that stick to people and
Yeah.
don't scare me. And
Yeah.
I work at this temple with two black ladies that come from the islands, and they have all these perceptions of where they come from, like islands or countries.
Yeah.
Different countries have different perceptions of spirituality. Like Africa is amazing at their spirituality, how advanced certain tribes and the things they do. Like it fascinates me, all these different types of spiritualities. Even New Orleans, I was there and gave a reading to this one girl, and she's like, "How you do that?" And like, I just do it, you know?
Yeah.
I bought a cowboy hat and I walk into a store and this young girl's talking to me, but she's talking so fast. I'm like, "Oh Lord, she better be quiet because I'm gonna get a migraine." And I said, "Can I take that girl in the corner?" I don't like saying the black girl, but America's, that's how they, and I'm like her.
Yeah.
So, and I said to her, "Why'd you give up the tarot cards yesterday? You're afraid of something?" She said, "How you know that?" I said, "How I know that. I know more than that." Would you like to read? And it was just this, that's the flow of it. And if you go
Yeah.
on my Instagram, you'll see some of these captions. You'll see Savannah, Georgia, where I give a reading to someone randomly. But there's not really a random in this kind of business.
No, there
The way
isn't.
of life, there's no random.
Yeah. It's like
I'm
when
not,
the
yeah,
spirits work.
exactly. A spirit comes through and just goes, like Sedona was amazing. Love the experience. It's the Hollywood of spirituality.
Yeah.
It's the Mecca,
Yeah.
you know? And at the end of the day, it's just people. You can't get, I worked in high end all my life. I sold $30,000 beds. I mean, I worked in lots of high end jobs. I used to work at Via Rail on the train,
Yeah.
and that grounded me. I learned how to ground myself on the rails.
Yeah.
And I'd work on a train that have 180 passengers. It was like a little can full of people. So I felt everything.
Yeah.
And I would go like, "Oh my God." And I learned to go in and go, "Don't judge." That was a big step for me, not to judge the energy, to send love, not to take on what's not mine.
Yeah. So I'm curious, after you do readings, how do you ground yourself?
Quick meditation, 20
Yeah.
minutes, meditate. Sometimes I'll take a bath, salt bath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find I garden.
Good.
Like
Yeah,
the
grounded.
hands, the dirt, and I'll just be like, today's a gardening day, and I need to plant. And I always notice when I'm doing like a lot of readings, it's like, oh, and I'll do the meditation, but I feel like I need more than just the meditation.
Oh, I
Yeah,
do
we're in
hot yoga.
the garden.
I do hot yoga because
Oh, do
body
you really?
body work. I had surgery, so I haven't done it in a while, but body work helps me get back into my body and less into that space. So I go right back in. The
Yeah.
breathing. And hot yoga saved my life. My mom was dying, it was so hard. And hot yoga, I recall going, "Wow, I can really stay in myself and not
Yeah.
feel that expansion of mediumship that you go and you feel." And so that helped me to also ground, because in the winter in Canada or in the US, I mean, you can't really put your feet on the ground unless you're in Florida. Not right now because it's snowing, but normally.
Our feet might stick to the ice. We have ice outside.
Oh, here too. Yeah. Which is a beautiful season. I find the seasons really help for myself going in.
Yeah.
Mindfulness, like tea and it's hot and you're just, you
Yeah.
go back to the moment. In mediumship, when I look at an object, I look at the beauty of the color. I only have I'm weird that way, handmade cups or mugs, nothing made in China. Everything has to be made with someone's love or energy. And I'll look at the clay and say, "Thank you for the elements and the water and that's gone into it." But
Yeah.
the meditation that I could tell you about is when I asked the sacred rain to fall down. I just
Yeah.
close my eyes and I see the sacred rain just washes over everything as I ground myself to Mother Earth. And then I have a sacred wind coming in. I like Sedona, New Mexico. Like Santa Fe is my favorite place. So I love Santa Fe and that really breezy, not too hot, not like a Palm Springs hot where your dries your eyes, but this dryness comes and just warms you up and dries you after that rain. And then I ask the sacred white light to come in and infuse me, going
Yeah.
through every pore. So it's a very simple
Yeah.
meditation to get me. And the more intention I've put in it, the faster it works.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I thought it was a nut. Oh my God, what am I actually doing? And now I feel it and it works.
Yeah. So I am curious because you are a platform medium, correct?
Yes, yes, correct.
Yeah. So and I always like to ask this question. Your very first platform demonstration, how was that? What was that like? Were you scared?
Well, in Canada,
Very first time you
their
stepped
first
on that platform by
oh God,
yourself?
yes, 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 yes. Yeah, I was just didn't, I was so fearful about giving the wrong message to the person.
Yeah.
I was shaking inside. I was like, oh, I do want to talk about my first time abroad
Yeah.
in the UK at Arthur Findlay, where it's a school that they put you on stage sometimes and to see what you have, who you are. And that moment was interesting because my tutor was off because she had a funeral.
Yeah.
Simone Key, love Simone.
Oh, I love her too.
Love
Yeah.
Simone. And there was somebody who replaced her without saying names. It's okay, but had said to her, we're in the back, sitting in the back, and she said, everybody in the front now. And I said, when you speak to me that way, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not moving. But I moved, and then my hand went up. I said, excuse me, where's my tutor? And she's like, she's not here. I said, well, you're replacing her. What's on the agenda? She like, you like control? I said, yeah, because that's why I became a therapist, to find out control is an illusion. And then she called me on stage. And then I was sweating profusely. I mean, please remember I was backpacking for 2 months prior in, Greece and Italy and all these places, Germany, and all of a sudden I'm in the UK now in this beautiful school. And I'm thinking I've just made it to Mecca, and this is the place they tell you or make you or break you. It's like a Hollywood. It's
Yeah.
that moment. And I remember spirit, because they have a way of working, right? My hand started pointing to where it was going, and it went to the tutor in question, and their grandmother came through. And I remember feeling a bit of anxiety because I'm in front of this person I clearly was rude to, uh, that I was short with because I was upset that someone didn't say please. But
Yeah.
that's my own history of stuff. And then I went, oh Lord, now I'm on stage. And I remember being completely wet, sweat, and going, oh, I'm gonna go back to being a therapist and forget this. But actually, it went pretty well, and I gave a lot of good evidence at that moment.
Yeah.
Spirit
Oh,
always comes through, always comes through. I just have to get out of the way.
I find too, I totally agree because I remember my very first time I almost passed out from the nerves and I was drinking so much water. But what I do find, and let me know if this happened to you, once you're on the platform and you step into the power,
Oh yeah,
everything disappears.
oh yeah. In
The
Ottawa,
nerves.
in nation's capital,
Yeah.
there must have been 120 people. And it's a beautiful church. It's the only spiritualist church, right? And I was there. I'll be there every month, but the first time I was like, oh well, I'm here.
Yeah.
But and then I realized, wow, this is a beautiful church. They have a choir. They have not a choir, but they have a pianist. They have new pieces of music. Everything is laid out in a fashion that it's so professional. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. And I
Yeah.
had to give a speech before.
Yeah.
So after the speech, it was like I didn't go on right away. But when I went into the power, it was like boom, 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 boom. And they
Yeah.
have a 5-minute rule there. It's like 5 minute per message or something. They time you because they
Yeah.
have mediums on there,
Yeah.
and I was afraid for a second, and then I went spirit take over, and boom, 5 minutes. I was done. Five, and it was connections to spirit world with
Yeah.
evidence and going from A, B, and C, and I turn around and she's like, "Oh, give him one more, please." Great. And I remember asking Reverend Susan Guimont, who's been around for 60 years, long time. She won't like
Yeah.
that. I said 60 years. She's been around a few decades. And I said, how is that? And she's like, boom, best thing I've ever heard. I'm like, thank you. That is what makes it worth it. Of course, there's nervousness. I want to always be nervous. I want to be teachable. I want to tell spirit, I don't know everything. The
Yeah.
most high comes in and helps. That's how I work. But I'm still human.
Yeah. I found we're forever learning and spirit is forever molding us.
The other day I had dinner with friends that are therapists, and they're very left brain, and
Yeah.
one that brought tarot cards. I said, "Oh Lord, here we go." And they know I'm a medium, but nobody talks about it. It's like the dirty secret. John's in the room. There's an elephant.
Yes.
Talk about their breakups, the boyfriends, whatever life. They're building this house. They're traveling, but they never talk about John's mediumship. And the other day, my friend's birthday, I said, "You know what? Maybe I'll give you all a little reading." In French. It was interesting. And they were like, how do you do that? And it was like so precise.
Yeah.
And I
I
was amazed that this other therapist has tarot. And she's like, hold on, let me get the book and read. I said, love, just go with your feeling what the card means for you.
yeah.
But she wanted to be technical because that's our training as therapists. And it was just, I thought I was so afraid to come out to these people to in school to raise
Yeah.
my hand. What did you do before? Well, and I got a lot of backwash for that,
Yeah.
especially grief therapy training. I had this teacher, the founder of that program, said to me, well, a medium told one of my clients that her son killed himself, therefore he's in hell. And she goes, the one was in therapy 10 years. And that made me go, wow, no, 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 no. And that was educating her and saying, look, not all of us are like this. And that person should not have said that because there's a responsibility when we're mediums to give information that helps and guides people, not.
Yeah.
And a lot of therapists are against that because they feel that the person is not doing it on their own.
Yeah. I will add this. There is good and bad in every single
Of
profession.
course.
And then with mediumship, ethical. You need to be ethical because I have been on the receiving end of some very bad readings. And I know better inside my head, but it still messes with you for a little bit until you
Of
clear it. Yeah.
course. Before
And
my
we're
mom died.
trained,
Right.
right? So imagine somebody that's not trained. So then I would say, I don't know about you, but when people are going and looking for readings, it's trust your gut. And if it
Oh,
doesn't feel good,
resonate.
run away, run, don't walk.
It has to resonate.
Yeah,
It has to resonate with your feeling. Is that like a therapist? There's therapists I'm not comfortable with.
yeah,
It just doesn't resonate.
yeah,
I have a therapist, I love her because it took a long time. Like to
yeah,
cry as a man to be vulnerable took a long time. I think I cried this week with her because it was something very big for my childhood.
yeah,
I'm doing this thing called IFS, which is amazing. Internal Family Systems, all the parts that I didn't want to look at, and I kind of take them apart and go like Lego and go, this is the part I don't like myself, the part I hate myself, the part I love myself, this is the procrastinator. Where does it come from? And I'm fascinated by that world. But
yeah,
as a medium, I put that aside and I go into the moment, into
yeah,
the moment. A lot of people that are say mediums, they don't go into the moment. And they have all this unprocessed trauma that they transfer unwillingly at
yeah.
times. I don't even think they're doing it on purpose. It slides in.
It's
I
part
had
of,
one, yeah, sorry.
I said it's a part of who they are until
Yeah.
they do the training, do the therapy. Like I have a mentor right now, and he's all about doing the inner work. He's like,
Yeah,
you need to
Paul
do
Jacobs, right? Yes. Beautiful.
no,
I never
somebody
met
else.
anyone else. But you see, there are mediums that I'm pulled to because of that authentic
Yeah.
realness. That, like John Edwards is someone I really read his
Oh, I
stuff and
love him. Yes.
wonderful medium, responsible medium, ethical. Like there's something amazing about it. You will know who you're dealing with, how they speak about others,
Yeah.
because there's no need for competition. There's enough people for everybody. And my clients come and see me, and often enough, lately, because I went and toured the US and came back, I did go through changes, and the people I was close to at home before are no longer because the vibration is changing and I'm going to international stuff. And there's going to be jealousy. There's going to be people going, why are you going to all the spiritual churches? Why does Boston Spirit? Well, this is my calling. What can I tell you? And be proud of who you are with your gift, your unique gift. And I go forward with spirit, and I walk hand in hand.
I like that. I know in the beginning of my mediumship journey, I used to always do, well, what do you think? I'd call my medium friend. What do you think? Now I don't care what anybody thinks.
I don't either.
And then I'll get the opinion, well, you should. And it's like, no, no, no. This feels right for me. This is where I am. And I have to trust where spirit has me right now. And it may look a certain way to you, and you got like judgment going on, but that's your stuff. That's not mine. I'm happy. I think that's too part of this mediumship journey. And I'm going to speak for myself, is in the beginning, we're asking everybody 100 questions. We're looking at this course, that course, we're everywhere. Cause I know I was. And then when you get in that really safe, secure space of where you've done the healing and you know yourself, you're no longer looking to the outside world to say you've arrived as a medium.
Validation doesn't come from outside.
Yeah. When it comes from the inside. I love it.
It
So
takes time.
on that note, because I've so enjoyed this conversation, and when you write your book, I would love for you to come
Yeah.
back
Yes, I
and
will.
share your book. What do you have coming up? So for those that want to connect with you, are able to, I will have all of Jon's his website up, his social media links, so you guys can reach out to him. Uh, I hope you guys have enjoyed this interview, because I have. He's absolutely
Thank
amazing.
you. I'm doing a Montreal, March 28th in North Carolina online.
Yeah,
In Raleigh, I have an online event in the Carolinas. And then there's all the spiritualist churches, different cities, Toronto, coming closer to you and coming
yeah,
closer to that part of the world. And then there'll be online on my website too. But I also do it's funny, I've been doing a lot of like things of going to hair salons, and I do events like that, or I do like, wedding, when the bride or the shower, wedding showers,
yeah,
that kind of thing, and bridal showers, and instead of hiring a stripper, hire a medium, and then I go so it's that funny thing of bringing spirit into that person's life to
yeah,
infuse. If you go on my social media, you'll see there's a bride. I was very touched by this last reading I did, and it was just random, just call in, and
yeah,
she found out she had cancer right before marrying her husband, her dream, her boyfriend, her love. And it was so touching to touch her with spirit, and to know the healing, and to feel all that and give her that hope.
yeah.
Um, and I've got so many of those, but I'm just so lucky with spirit,
Yeah.
open.
Thank you. I will have all of his information. Go follow him on Instagram and find out if he's at a location near you. If you want him to come to your location, just email him. And yeah, thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.